Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey people, today we're going to take a look at Chocobo's Crystal Hunt, directly from Square Enix themselves. Yes, this is a card game very loosely based on the Final Fantasy universe, and specifically the classical, so to speak, Final Fantasy universe, that with that particular art style, not like post-PlayStation era Final Fantasy. You have the Chocobos, that's just right there in the title. You have bombs and Arimons and fat Chocobos and crystals of all the different elements, which is pretty much all the Final Fantasy flavor that's in there. But this is a very light card game, so it's not supposed to be all that deep story-wise. Basically, you're just trying to get these crystals and be the first one to do so in a certain arrangement. Let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Chocobo's Crystal Hunt is a competitive game for 3 to 5 players. Each player is trying to hunt for magical crystal cards by using Chocobo cards. You're supposed to play multiple games in one sitting until one player has won twice. You win by gathering a hand of all 4 crystal types or collecting 6 crystals regardless of their type. Every player starts with a random crystal marker, and if there's a 5th player, they get a Chocobo marker. Every player with a crystal token gets 1 crystal card of the same type. The Chocobo player in a 5-player game gets nothing extra. Everyone also gets a fat Chocobo card in hand. Finally, everyone draws until they have 3 cards total, including the crystal and the fat Chocobo you start with. Whoever has the fire crystal goes first. Turns are very simple. First, you draw a card. Then, you may play a Chocobo card to hunt another player's hand. Play the Chocobo, choose another player, and choose a card from their hand without looking. If it's a crystal card, that's a success, and you take that card into your own hand. If it's another Chocobo of any type, the hunt fails, and the targeted player gets the card back. There are also 2 monster cards, whose only purpose is to lay in wait as a trap for the people hunting your hand. If a player chooses a bomb from another player's hand, they have to take a card from their hand and put it at the bottom of the deck. If it's an Arimon, the player who chose the card will have to show their entire hand to the person they just tried to hunt from. The type of Chocobo you use to hunt is important as well. The fat Chocobo, which you start with, returns to your hand after being played regardless of whether or not you successfully hunted a crystal card. Regular Chocobos, however, will only let you take their card back into hand if you successfully nabbed a crystal with it. Then you may continue your hunt and go again. If the hunt failed, however, you must discard the Chocobo, but you may take another turn by using a different Chocobo unless you hit a monster. And that's the game. Keep going until one player gets the requisite number of crystals and takes a victory token. Then, start all over. As soon as someone wins 2 rounds, they immediately win the whole thing. And that's it. No, seriously. That's it. That's the game. No joke. So, as you can probably tell, there's not a lot to this game, and I think it's pretty bad. Not like overwhelmingly awful, it's just not anything that's even noteworthy, which in and of itself is a pretty bad sin. But I still wanted to talk about it because this is one of those games where I have to really wonder what is my responsibility as a reviewer in reviewing something that may not be for me. If I am not the target audience of something, and therefore I'm having a really hard time playing it and enjoying it, well, isn't that my fault because I'm the one playing it, knowing that it's probably not for me? A very light, like, slightly more advanced Go Fish. And it clearly, well, that's the thing. Is it aimed at a younger audience? You would think so, because it's so light, because it's a Go Fish simulator, because an advanced one, because it's got these little cartoony graphics and it's very cutesy. Yeah, maybe it's for kids and families. But the fact is, it's using Final Fantasy as a theme, and not just Final Fantasy as a theme, classic Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy that no kid today would probably recognize. They would recognize the emo characters from the latest few Final Fantasies. This is going for the nostalgia factor that only people above a certain age, like in my age bracket, which I'm too ashamed to say at this point in my life. But they're clearly aiming for that age bracket and trying to get that nostalgia factor kicked in. So in that regard, maybe it is aimed at me, or the royal me, my group of people who are into Final Fantasy. And believe me, I am into Final Fantasy. I've always loved that series from the very get-go. I played the Final Fantasy on my NES back in the day. So if that's the case, and they're trying to cater to my nostalgic nerd group, then wouldn't they have made a better game? Because this is pretty bad. There's like nothing to this. My group and I sat down and played several hands, and we're like, no, we gotta try this again. Certainly we're missing something, but we're missing nothing. It's incredibly just random. You could make it one time around the table, maybe 2 times around the table, and then that's just it. It's over, and it's all based on luck, and there's just no strategy. There's nothing to it. One player could get slammed and just keep getting cards taken from them, like, oh, you just drew a new card? I want to take that one. Let me get your hand. Because there's not a lot of consequence in this game. You could, especially if you've got the right Chocobo, if you've got the fat, everyone has the fat Chocobo. I'm like, oh, okay, I just get that back. And if you have the fast Chocobo, you can just go on a streak and just grab a bunch of, or the regular Chocobo, you can just go on a streak and grab a bunch of cards. And so it's just uber simplistic, and I feel like even if this was aimed at children, I think they deserve better. And again, part of why I'm not like super upset about it, but part of why it is disappointing, or especially disappointing to me, is because it's Final Fantasy. And because it looks good, by the way. I really like the classic art style of Final Fantasy, and it looks fantastic. And I didn't need this to be something huge and grandiose. I needed them to not phone it in, and at least make it a decent card game with the Final Fantasy theme pasted onto it. I would have been perfectly okay with that. Just to have it look good and play decently doesn't do that. So that is Chocobo's Crystal Hunt. Can't recommend it. I'm happy that Square Enix is making official games, and I want to see more. I want to see bigger, more grandiose games from them, but this is not a good start.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.